The night was alive with the symphony of crickets and distant birds, a familiar melody that wrapped around the fields like a comforting blanket. But then, without warning, the sounds vanished, swallowed by an unsettling silence that pressed down on the land like a heavy fog. It was as if the world itself held its breath, teetering on the edge of something unfathomable. In that eerie stillness, a chill crept through the air, prickling the skin and igniting an instinctual fear. As the darkness deepened, something shifted in the fields, an unseen presence lurking just beyond the reach of the eye. What emerged from that silence would change everything, leaving behind a mystery that demanded to be unraveled. What happened when the sky went completely silent? An impossible phenomenon awaited, one that would challenge everything the townsfolk thought they knew about their quiet little corner of the world. As they stood frozen in disbelief, the answers whispered through the wind, beckoning them to look closer. The night unfurled over the small town of Blackwood like a vast black canvas, its edges frayed with the soft glow of distant stars. The air was thick with the earthy scent of tilled soil, a comforting aroma that usually signaled the promise of harvest. But tonight, that promise felt like a lie. The fields, usually alive with the sounds of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl, had succumbed to an unsettling silence. It was as if the very essence of life had been siphoned away, leaving only a haunting stillness that clung to the land. Maxine, a local farmer, stood at the edge of her property, her heart thudding in time with the oppressive quiet. She had grown accustomed to the chorus of night sounds, the rustling of leaves, and the gentle murmur of the wind. But now, as she stared into the darkness, she felt the weight of the silence pressing down on her, smothering her thoughts. A shiver ran down her spine as she turned her head, half expecting to see something lurking in the shadows, something that shouldn't be there. The dirt road that wound past her fields seemed to stretch into infinity, disappearing into a void that felt both infinite and suffocating. The moon hung low, casting a pale light that barely pierced the thick veil of night. She could see the outlines of her barn and the neighboring silos, their silhouettes stark against the horizon. An unsettling sensation settled in her chest. Something was wrong. Something was coming. As she took a step back towards her house, a sudden gust of wind swept through the fields, rustling the tall stalks of corn. It felt like a warning, a whisper of something unnatural approaching. The temperature dropped, the air turning electric, swirling around her like an invisible entity. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end as she caught sight of her dog, Rufus, who had been lying quietly by the porch. He suddenly bolted upright, his ears perked, eyes wide with fear as he scanned the dark expanse before them. Maxine's breath hitched. It was as if the night itself had transformed, the air thick with an unnameable tension. The familiar sounds of her rural world, crickets chirping, the rustle of nocturnal creatures, had vanished, replaced by an eerie void. She closed her eyes, trying to convince herself it was merely her imagination. But deep down, she knew that something was amiss, something she could not see but could feel creeping closer. The silence stretched on, a taut string ready to snap. Then, from the depths of that stillness, a sound emerged. Soft, almost imperceptible, like the distant hum of machinery or the faintest echo of a heartbeat. It reverberated through the ground beneath her feet, sending ripples of unease coursing through her body. What could it be? The wind shifted again, carrying a metallic scent that was foreign, unsettling. It clawed at her senses, urging her to flee, yet a morbid curiosity held her in place. Suddenly, Rufus barked, a sharp, desperate sound that shattered the silence. Maxine's heart raced as she turned back to the house, panic bubbling within her. She reached for the porch railing, steadying herself against the dread that gripped her. The air was thick with anticipation, the calm before a storm that felt inevitable, yet she couldn't fathom what it could be. Then, as if drawn by an unseen force, she turned her gaze back to the fields. The darkness seemed to ripple like fabric pulled taut, ready to tear. A flicker of light danced at the edge of her vision, just beyond the cornstalks. It was fleeting, a mere flash of luminescence that vanished as quickly as it appeared. But it left a trace behind, a whisper of movement, a promise of something yet to come. Maxine's breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, time stood still. She was acutely aware of the world around her, the way the air felt heavy, the way her heart pounded against her ribs. It was then that she realized the truth. Whatever was about to unfold in the fields was not just a figment of her imagination. The silence had become a harbinger, a prelude to something unimaginable that awaited her in the shadows. With her heart racing, she took a step forward, compelled to investigate, to chase the flicker of light that had drawn her in. The fields seemed to whisper her name, beckoning her closer, urging her to confront the unknown. The dread that had settled in her chest morphed into a strange exhilaration, the thrill of the hunt mingling with the fear of what lay ahead. But as she stepped off the porch and onto the cool, damp earth, a sudden realization washed over her. She was not alone. The stillness was alive with unseen eyes, watching her, waiting. The sensation prickled her skin, and as she ventured further into the darkness, the world around her felt charged with an energy she could not explain. In the distance, the light flickered again, this time more persistent, illuminating the field with an otherworldly glow. Maxine hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to turn back, yet the allure of the unknown drew her forward. The air vibrated with a tension that felt alive, as if the very fabric of reality was shifting beneath her feet. Unbeknownst to her, the night was about to unravel in ways she could never have imagined. As she stepped into the expanse of the field, the darkness enveloped her, and the last vestiges of the familiar were swallowed whole. The silence that had fallen over Blackwood was not just an absence of sound. It was an invitation to explore the depths of a mystery that had been waiting patiently in the shadows, ready to emerge when the world least expected it. The night unfolded around Maxine like a dark, velvety cloak, wrapping her in an embrace that felt both inviting and suffocating. The coolness of the earth seeped into her shoes, grounding her while simultaneously urging her to flee. The fields stretched out before her, vast and silent, a canvas of deep shadows punctuated by the flickering glow that seemed to dance just beyond her reach. Every blade of grass swayed gently in the breeze, whispering secrets she could not decipher. The air was thick with the scent of damp soil and something metallic, a tang that lingered at the back of her throat, igniting her senses. As she stepped further into the open expanse, the darkness became a living entity, pulsing with a rhythm that resonated deep within her chest. She felt the weight of isolation, each step echoing in the stillness like a heartbeat. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a silvery light that barely penetrated the thick veil of shadows. The occasional rustle of leaves and the distant call of a night owl were the only sounds breaking the suffocating silence, yet they felt like echoes from another realm, amplifying the sensation of being watched. Maxine's heart raced, the anticipation of the unknown mingling with an instinctual dread. The flickering light grew brighter, illuminating the outlines of the crops around her. They stood tall and rigid, like sentinels guarding the secrets of the night, their leaves trembling as if they too sensed the charged atmosphere. The geometry of the field, with its neat rows and patterns, began to warp in her mind, transforming into something uncanny. The way the shadows fell between the plants created shapes that felt almost deliberate, as if the earth itself was attempting to communicate. The light pulsed again, a soft thrum that resonated in her bones. It was a beacon, yet it beckoned her with an unsettling allure that made her skin prickle. She squinted into the darkness, trying to discern its source, but it seemed to play tricks on her eyes, retreating just as she thought she could grasp it. Maxine hesitated, a visceral knot of fear coiling in her stomach. Was it merely her imagination, or was there truly something otherworldly waiting for her in the depths of the field? Then, without warning, a low hum filled the air, vibrating through the ground beneath her feet. It was unlike anything she had ever heard, a sound that seemed to resonate from the very core of the earth. The hum grew louder, swirling around her, and she found herself rooted to the spot, her breath hitching as a sensation of wrongness washed over her. It was as if the world had shifted, and within that shift lay the promise of something unfathomable. Maxine's instincts screamed at her to retreat, yet she felt an unexplainable pull, a magnetic force drawing her deeper into the field. Every nerve in her body was on high alert, the hair on her arms standing at attention as the vibrations intensified. She could feel the presence of something, an awareness that was neither benevolent nor malevolent, but simply there. It was as if the very fabric of reality had thinned, allowing her to glimpse beyond the veil of the mundane. Suddenly, a flash of light burst forth from the center of the field, illuminating the crops in a surreal glow. Maxine squinted against the brightness, her heart pounding against her ribs as she stumbled forward, compelled by an unseen force. The light took on a shape, a swirling pattern that seemed to pulse with life, and she could no longer deny the sensation that she was stepping into a realm that defied understanding. The crops around her began to shift, bending at impossible angles without breaking, as if responding to the light's call. The sight was mesmerizing, yet it filled her with an overwhelming sense of dread. Maxine's mind raced, grappling with the implications of what she was witnessing. Was this a natural phenomenon, or something far beyond the realm of human comprehension? The air crackled with an energy that felt both exhilarating and terrifying, and she found herself questioning the very nature of reality. As she moved closer, the sounds around her began to morph. The distant rustling of the crops turned into a cacophony of whispers, a symphony of voices that seemed to rise and fall like a tide. They were unintelligible, yet they resonated with a familiarity that sent chills down her spine. It was as if the land itself was speaking, revealing truths hidden beneath layers of time. Maxine felt her resolve wavering, the thrill of discovery battling against the instinct to flee. With every step she could feel the weight of the night pressing down upon her, the darkness closing in like a predator ready to pounce. And yet the light continued to pulse, a promise of knowledge just beyond her grasp, urging her to take one more step into the unknown. But as she reached the epicenter of the glow, she was met with an eerie silence that swallowed the whispers whole. The light dimmed, revealing a perfect circle etched into the earth, the geometric pattern so precise it seemed to defy nature itself. The air around her grew still, the vibrations fading into an unsettling quiet. Maxine stood there breathless, confronted by the inexplicable, a manifestation of something far greater than herself, a secret that had lain dormant in the fields of Blackwood, waiting for the right moment to awaken. In that moment she understood that whatever had drawn her here was not finished with her yet. The sensation of being watched returned, more palpable than ever, and as she stood on the precipice of understanding, the realization hit her. She had crossed a threshold, and there was no turning back. The silence around Maxine felt like a living entity, a thick fog that enveloped her senses and pressed down on her chest. The air was laden with the scent of damp earth and something metallic, an odor that prickled at the back of her throat, urging her to recoil. Yet she stood rooted in place, her heart pounding a primal rhythm against her ribcage, each beat echoing in the stillness as if the very land was listening. The perfect circle before her was not merely an anomaly, it was a riddle etched into the soil, a geometric enigma that demanded to be deciphered. The lines were so precise, so deliberate, that they seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly energy, pulsating softly as if alive. Maxine felt an inexplicable pull toward the center, a magnetic force that compelled her to kneel and trace the contours of the formation with her fingertips. As she did, a sensation coursed through her, warmth radiating from the ground, a subtle vibration that resonated with her very bones. But there was something more, something lurking just beyond the edges of her perception. The whispers had returned, swirling like a tempest in her mind, urging her to listen closely. They were not mere sounds, but a chorus of emotions interwoven with the fabric of the night. She could feel their urgency, their desperation, and it was intoxicatingly terrifying. Maxine closed her eyes, attempting to drown out the cacophony, focusing instead on the steady rhythm of her breath, the only anchor in the sea of chaos. Then a new sound broke through, a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate the ground beneath her. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced, a haunting melody that felt as though it was being played on an ancient instrument, long forgotten yet deeply familiar. The resonance matched the beating of her heart, creating a symphony of fear and wonder that intertwined in a dance of light and shadow. Maxine's eyes flew open, her gaze snapping back to the circle. The air shimmered as if reality itself was warping around her. Was it just her imagination, or did the edges of the circle ripple, like the surface of a pond disturbed by an unseen hand? The sensation of being watched intensified, no longer a mere whisper in the back of her mind, but a palpable presence that sent a chill down her spine. She turned, half expecting to find someone, or something, behind her. But the night remained still and unyielding. Yet, the whispers grew louder, a crescendo of voices layered with urgency, each tone a thread woven into the tapestry of the night. They seemed to beckon her, urging her to understand, to unveil the secrets that lay buried beneath the surface. Maxine felt as though she was standing on the edge of a vast chasm, teetering between the known and the unknown, the safe and the terrifying. The light from the circle flickered, casting distorted shadows that danced mockingly in the corners of her vision. Her instincts screamed at her to leave, to run back to the safety of her home and the mundane concerns of everyday life. But curiosity clawed at her, a primal urge that fought against the fear wrapping around her throat like a vice. She was drawn to the circle, to the mystery it held, as if it were a gateway to understanding something much larger than herself. Her fingers trembled as they hovered just above the edge, feeling the warmth emanating from within, an invitation to step beyond the threshold of her reality. Suddenly, the vibration intensified, swirling around her, pulling her deeper into the night. The air thickened and the whispers coalesced into a singular voice, resonant and commanding. "Seek the truth," it implored, echoing in her mind like a chant. "Embrace the unknown." Maxine felt her breath hitch, a mix of fear and exhilaration flooding her senses. She was no longer just an observer. She was a participant in something cosmic, something that transcended the boundaries of human experience. The circle was not just a mark on the ground. It was a portal, a bridge to a reality that lay just beyond her reach, a reality she was now desperate to explore. Yet, as she took a hesitant step forward, the ground trembled beneath her, the whispers rising to a fever pitch, wrapping around her like a cocoon. The light surged, illuminating the night with an ethereal glow that painted her surroundings in shades of dreamlike wonder. And in that moment of suspended disbelief, Maxine felt something shift within her, a realization that she was no longer alone. The sensation of being watched morphed into an overwhelming presence, a force that enveloped her, filling the air with an electric charge. She was part of a greater story, one that had been unfolding long before she had ever set foot in Blackwood. The realization was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. a reminder that the universe was vast and filled with mysteries waiting to be unearthed. But just as quickly as the moment of clarity arrived, it was shattered by a deep, resonating sound that seemed to emanate from the very core of the earth. It was a low rumble, a heartbeat of the land that shook her to her core. The light dimmed, plunging her back into shadows as the whispers faded into an unsettling silence. The circle was no longer a beacon of knowledge. It had become a harbinger of something dark and unknown. Maxine staggered back, her heart racing, the weight of the night pressing down on her once more. She had crossed a threshold, yes, but the way back was no longer clear. What had she awakened in these fields? What secrets lay buried in the soil of Blackwood? As the last remnants of the light faded, she was left standing in the pitch-black darkness, the echo of the ancient voice still resonating in her mind, a haunting reminder that the true journey had only just begun. The night weighed heavily on Maxine, the air thick with an unnameable tension that clung to her skin like dew. It was dark now, the stars hidden behind a veil of clouds that loomed overhead, their usual shimmer replaced by an oppressive gloom. She stood at the edge of the mysterious circle, its geometric perfection a stark contrast to the chaos in her mind. The pulse of the earth beneath her feet was a reminder of the ancient forces at play, the heartbeat of a living entity that had awakened, perhaps, for the first time in eons. As she turned her gaze back to the circle, the remnants of the earlier light flickered faintly in her memory, the way an after-image lingers when one stares too long at the sun. What had she seen? What had she felt? The whispers that had once seemed inviting now echoed with a dissonance that made her skin crawl. It was as if the very essence of the night had shifted, transforming from a realm of wonder to one of dread. Maxine's breath came in shallow gasps, each inhalation a struggle against the weight of the unknown. The silence enveloped her, thick and suffocating, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant hoot of an owl. But even those sounds seemed different now, tinged with an unsettling urgency, as if nature itself was holding its breath in anticipation of what was to come. The ground shifted again, a subtle tremor that rippled through the air, vibrating against her bones. It was a sound that felt more felt than heard, a low thrumming that resonated with the very core of her being. Maxine could almost taste it, a metallic tang that lingered in the back of her throat, leaving a bitter aftertaste that made her stomach churn. The whispers returned, but they were no longer melodic. They were frantic, urgent, a cacophony of voices that seemed to beckon her forward yet warn her to stay away. What had she done? The question echoed in her mind, knotting her insides with fear. With each heartbeat she felt the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her, unseen entities watching from the shadows. She could almost sense their curiosity, their hunger for understanding, or perhaps their desire to remain undisturbed. The air crackled with tension, as if the very fabric of reality was fraying at the edges, ready to unravel at any moment. Maxine hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to run, to escape the pull of the circle that beckoned her with such fervor. But something deeper held her in place, an insatiable curiosity mingled with an undeniable sense of purpose. She was standing on the precipice of something monumental, a moment that could alter the course of her life forever. The choice was hers. Move forward into the unknown, or retreat into the safety of the familiar. As she took a tentative step closer, the ground beneath her shifted once more, a violent tremor that sent a jolt of panic through her. The circle seemed to pulse with life, the geometric patterns shifting subtly as if responding to her very presence. It was then that she noticed it, the faint outline of a figure within the swirling shadows just beyond the edge of her vision. It flickered like a candle in the wind, always there yet never fully revealing itself. Maxine's heart raced, the sound echoing in her ears louder than the whispers that filled the air. She strained her eyes, searching for clarity in the darkness, but the figure remained elusive, a wisp of smoke that danced just beyond her reach. It was a reminder that the true essence of the mystery lay not in what could be seen, but in what was felt, an ethereal presence that shifted like the wind. And then, without warning, the world erupted into chaos. The ground heaved violently, the pulse of the earth now a tempest that threatened to swallow her whole. Maxine stumbled back, the whispers rising to a fever pitch, a chorus of voices that screamed in unison, urging her to flee. The light returned, blinding in its intensity, illuminating the night with a brilliance that painted the landscape in shades of violet and gold. In that blinding light, she saw it. The circle, no longer a mere construction of bent wheat, but a portal, a gateway to something beyond comprehension. Patterns flashed across her vision, ancient symbols that seemed to swirl and twist in a hypnotic dance, each one resonating with a truth she couldn't quite grasp. The air was thick with energy, a tangible force that vibrated through her, filling her with both dread and exhilaration. Maxine felt the ground beneath her feet tremble with an urgency that sent her heart racing. It was a primal rhythm, a call to action that resonated deep within her. She was on the threshold of understanding, but the reality of it was terrifying. Shadows danced at the periphery of her vision, flickering in and out like memories she couldn't quite recall. The moment stretched, time warping in the presence of the unknown. And just as suddenly as it began, the light dimmed, leaving her once again shrouded in darkness. The whispers faded to a low hum, wrapping around her like a shroud, and Maxine was left with an unsettling silence that seemed to mock her very existence. What had she witnessed? What had she awakened? The questions lingered in the air, heavy and oppressive. As she stood alone in the darkness, the remnants of that cosmic encounter swirling in her mind. The circle remained, a silent sentinel in the night, its mysteries intact yet tantalizingly close. She had crossed a threshold, yes, but the true journey had just begun. What lay beyond the veil of darkness? What truths were waiting to be unearthed? Maxine took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever lay ahead, knowing that the answers she sought were tangled in the very fabric of the universe, a fabric that was now irrevocably woven into her own story. The moon hung high, casting an ethereal glow over the landscape, but it did little to quell the encroaching shadows that clung to the edges of the field. Maxine's breath came in shallow gasps, the remnants of that blinding light still dancing behind her eyelids, imprinted with the haunting symbols that had flickered before her like ancient ghosts. The circle was now a silent observer, the wheat bent with purpose, its geometry speaking a language that twisted her mind in knots. She felt as though the ground beneath her had shifted, each blade of grass whispering secrets meant only for her. The air was thick with an unnatural stillness, broken only by the distant call of an owl, a sound that seemed almost too loud, too deliberate in the quietude. Maxine strained her ears, trying to catch any additional sounds that might emerge from the depths of the night. Were those footsteps? No, just the soft sigh of the wind. Yet, there was something else. A subtle vibration that throbbed beneath her feet, a pulse that resonated with her heartbeat. It was as if the earth itself was alive, breathing in sync with her anxiety. She dared to step closer to the circle, each footfall a calculated risk. The wheat swayed gently, as if beckoning her to delve deeper into its mystery. She could feel the pull of the formation, an energy that danced over her skin, prickling her senses. Maxine extended her hand, hesitating just before the edge of the circle, the tips of her fingers brushing against the cool, bent stalks. A wave of emotion washed over her, fear intermixed with an inexplicable curiosity. What had she stumbled upon? What was the nature of the force that had revealed itself to her, if only for a fleeting moment? As she stood there, the weight of solitude pressed down upon her, transforming the night into an oppressive cloak. She thought of her neighbors, the farmers who had lived in this quiet stretch of land for generations, the laughter shared at dusk over barbecues and the murmurs exchanged during late-night harvests. She thought of their skepticism, their dismissive chuckles at the mere mention of the strange lights that had become a topic of hushed conversations. Would they disbelieve her too, or would they see the truth she had glimpsed? The sound of rustling caught her attention, snapping her from her reverie. A figure appeared at the edge of the field, silhouetted against the fading light of the stars. It was Dean, the grizzled farmer whose land bordered hers, his face a mask of weariness and confusion. He approached slowly, his eyes darting nervously between Maxine and the circle, the air between them thick with unspoken words. "What did you see?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, trembling as he stepped closer. Maxine hesitated, the gravity of her experience weighing heavily on her tongue. There was light, a circle, symbols. She stammered, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I felt something, Dean, something powerful. I don't know how to explain it." He studied her, skepticism flickering in his gaze. But there was also a hint of something else. Fear. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he murmured, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting to see the shadows come alive. "People are talking. There's something unnatural about this place." The tension crackled between them, a shared understanding of the weight of the unknown. "What do you mean?" Maxine pressed, her heart racing. "There've been others," Dean replied, his voice lowering as if afraid the night itself might overhear. "People who've seen the lights, they say it's a curse or worse. They don't come back the same. I thought it was just talk, but now..." Maxine's pulse quickened. "What did they see?" "Just flashes. No one could agree on what happened. But they all got the same look in their eyes, like they've touched something they weren't supposed to." Before she could respond, they both turned as the air shifted again, a low hum filling the silence. It was as if the very atmosphere vibrated with a low frequency that resonated deep within their chests. The hairs on the back of Maxine's neck stood on end, a primal instinct screaming at her to run. But she wouldn't. She couldn't. The truth called her, a siren song weaving through the fabric of her very being. The hum grew louder, entwining with the sound of the wind, creating a symphony that was both beautiful and terrifying. "Listen," she urged, her voice tinged with urgency. "Can you hear it?" Dean nodded, his expression shifting from skepticism to wide-eyed terror. "It's coming from the circle. We need to go." Yet even as he spoke, neither of them could tear their gazes away from the formation, the patterns shimmering under the moonlight like a living entity. The urge to flee battled with an instinct to understand, to uncover the secrets hidden within the geometry of the earth. Suddenly the ground quaked, a deep rumble that seemed to resonate from within the circle itself. Maxine stumbled, her heart pounding in rhythm with the tremors. "It's alive!" she gasped, barely able to comprehend the implications of her words. Dean's eyes widened in horror. "We have to leave." But as they turned to run, the pulsating hum crescendoed, enveloping them in sound and sensation. The night exploded with brilliance once more, and the symbols within the circle flared to life, swirling in a kaleidoscope of colors that beckoned them closer. Maxine felt the pull of the circle, an irresistible force that threatened to draw her in, to reveal the truths that lay just beyond comprehension. "Maxine!" Dean's voice broke through the chaos, a desperate plea that resonated in the chaos. "Don't go near it!" Yet, as she stood on the precipice, caught between the known and the unknown, she knew there was no turning back. The night held its breath, the world around them fading into a hushed reverence as the light enveloped her. blinding and beautiful, promising revelations that were both thrilling and terrifying. The hum transformed into a voice, whispering secrets that sent shivers down her spine. And in that moment, Maxine understood. She was not just a witness, but a participant in something far greater than herself. And as the light reached its zenith, she felt the fabric of reality unravel, threads of existence intertwining in ways she could never have imagined. What awaited her on the other side of that circle? A truth that was hers to uncover, or a fate she could not foresee? The answers danced just beyond her grasp, and as the night pulsed with anticipation, Maxine took a step forward, plunging into the abyss of the unknown. The air crackled around her, the sound of her heartbeat echoing in the silence, and in that moment, she felt both terrified and alive, caught in the throes of a mystery that was only just beginning to unfold. As dawn broke over the rural landscape, the world felt eerily hushed, as if holding its breath in anticipation of what the day might reveal. Maxine had crossed a threshold, stepping into a realm where the ordinary ceased to exist, and the impossible began to take shape. The air was thick with a metallic tang, a lingering residue of the night's events that clung to her skin like a second layer. She could still feel the pulsations of the circle echoing in her mind, a haunting melody that played softly beneath the surface of her thoughts. The sun climbed slowly, casting long shadows across the fields that stretched endlessly before her. Each blade of grass seemed to sway in a rhythm that echoed the heartbeat she had felt in the night, the heartbeat of the earth itself. Maxine stood at the edge of the formation, the geometric patterns etched into the soil still glimmering with an otherworldly sheen. They were unlike anything she had ever seen, intricate spirals and sharp lines that seemed to defy the very laws of nature. Dean had retreated to a safe distance, his eyes wide with disbelief, and yet there was a fire of determination kindled within him. "We need to gather evidence, Maxine. We can't just leave this behind," he urged, his voice breaking the silence that enveloped them. But Maxine was entranced, her feet seemingly rooted to the ground as she examined the designs that whispered secrets of the cosmos. "Evidence?" she echoed, barely comprehending. What if it's more than that? What if it's a message? The thought sent a shiver down her spine, and she found herself stepping closer, compelled by an unseen force that beckoned her to decipher the enigma laid out before her. The sunlight caught the edges of the formations, casting shadows that danced like specters on the ground. With each cautious step, she felt the vibrations resonate in her chest. A low hum that thrummed in sync with her heartbeat, a reminder that she was not alone in this vast, desolate expanse. Dean's voice faded into the background as Maxine leaned down, tracing her fingers over the smooth, flattened stalks of grain. They lay perfectly organized, yet there was an uncanny sense of life within the pattern, as if the very earth was breathing, whispering truths she was not yet ready to hear. The smell of damp earth mixed with the metallic undertones created a sensory tapestry that was both intoxicating and unsettling. "Maxine, look!" Dean's voice pierced through her reverie, pulling her gaze from the ground. He pointed toward the horizon, where a group of curious onlookers had begun to gather, drawn in by the spectacle of the formation. Their figures were mere silhouettes against the rising sun, each one moving with a mix of trepidation and intrigue. As more people arrived, murmurs and gasps filled the air, a chorus of disbelief and wonder that only deepened the sense of foreboding. Maxine felt a knot tighten in her stomach. They were intruders in a mystery that had been unfolding long before they arrived. How could she explain the inexplicable? How could she convey the sensation that thrummed in her veins, the feeling that something was watching, waiting, just beyond the periphery of their understanding? "Do you think it could be a prank?" one of the bystanders whispered, skepticism lacing her tone. "People have made these things before. They're just clever hoaxes." But Maxine could only shake her head, a deep-seated conviction anchoring her thoughts. This was not a prank. The energy in the air was tangible, a silent declaration that something profound had occurred. The way the designs twisted and turned, the precision of each line, spoke of an intelligence far beyond human comprehension. It was as if the universe had etched its secrets into the very fabric of the earth, waiting for someone brave enough to unveil them. As the crowd swelled, a palpable tension settled over the scene, wrapped in an almost electric charge. Maxine could hear the whispers of disbelief mingling with excitement, but her focus remained fixed on the formation. The way the sunlight glinted off the edges created an illusion of movement, as if the patterns were alive, shifting under the weight of their gaze. Suddenly, a sharp cry pierced the air, cutting through the murmur of voices. "Look, over there!" A young boy pointed toward a patch of ground just beyond the circle, his voice trembling with both fear and awe. Maxine turned, her heart racing. In the grass, a strange mark had appeared, an imprint that seemed to pulse with a faint glow, a stark contrast to the earthy tones surrounding it. The air thickened as everyone stepped closer, craning their necks to catch a glimpse. The mark was geometric, echoing the patterns of the crop formation, and yet it held an aura of something ancient, something that felt both familiar and foreign. In that moment, a realization hit her with the force of a thunderclap. This was not merely a phenomenon, it was a connection, a thread woven into the greater tapestry of existence. And as she stood on the precipice of discovery, she felt the weight of those who had come before her, those who had sought answers in the same fields, under the same stars. Maxine's breath caught as she turned back to the formation, her mind racing with possibilities. What if these patterns were not just shapes, but a language? A call from the cosmos, begging to be understood. The thought filled her with both hope and dread, and she could feel the pull of the unknown once more, tugging at her core. But as she stood there, immersed in the mystery, a chilling realization crept over her. What if they were not alone? The sensation of being observed returned, prickling at the back of her neck like cold fingers tracing her spine. She glanced around at the faces surrounding her, each one illuminated by curiosity, yet deepened by the shadows of fear. Just then, the wind shifted, carrying with it a low, resonant hum that vibrated through the air. The sound was not unlike the pulsations they had felt the night before, echoing a promise of truth that had yet to be uncovered. Maxine's heart raced as she scanned the horizon, searching for something, anything that might explain the inexplicable. But the only answer that met her was the vast emptiness of the fields, stretching endlessly into the distance, a reminder that they were but mere visitors in a world filled with secrets older than time itself. And as the sun climbed higher, casting its light upon the earth, Maxine felt a stirring within her, a calling to delve deeper into the unknown, to embrace the shadows that danced just beyond the light. The mystery was far from over. It was only just beginning. The very air around her crackled with possibilities, and Maxine knew that whatever lay ahead would change everything. She was ready to confront the darkness, to unravel the truth that had woven itself into the fabric of her reality. But as she stepped closer to the mark, a chilling breeze swept through the field, carrying with it a whisper that sent shivers through her bones. An invitation, perhaps, or a warning. The choice was now hers, and with it came the weight of the universe. Maxine felt the pull of the formation, an almost magnetic force drawing her closer, yet an instinctual trepidation held her back. The geometric patterns etched into the earth were not just designs. They were a tapestry of the cosmos, a language of light and dark, of presence and absence. The air around her thickened, charged with an energy she could neither name nor comprehend. It was as if the ground beneath her feet whispered secrets, begging to be deciphered. With every step, she was reminded of the vastness of the night sky, the same stars that had twinkled down upon her during those long, sleepless nights. Each glimmer seemed to carry the weight of ancient stories, of civilizations that had gazed upward in wonder, seeking answers. But now, standing before this enigma, Maxine felt a kinship with those lost souls, an understanding that they, too, had wrestled with the mysteries of existence. Suddenly, the resonant hum returned, a low-frequency vibration pulsating through the air, igniting her senses. It was a sound that resonated deep within her, echoing the rhythm of her heartbeat, a reminder that she was alive, and yet so very small in the grand tapestry of the universe. The vibrations wrapped around her like a shroud, filling her with a sense of urgency, as if the cosmos itself was imploring her to listen, to heed its call. As the sun continued its ascent, the shadows cast by the formation elongated, stretching across the field like fingers reaching for the horizon. Maxine squinted against the brightening light, her gaze darting between the faces of the onlookers, each a reflection of her own confusion and fear. Some whispered anxiously, their voices trembling with disbelief, while others stood in hushed awe, captivated by the spectacle before them. Yet all shared a common thread, a visceral understanding that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The air shifted once more, and Maxine's heart raced as she caught a faint scent, a metallic tang that hung in the atmosphere, mingling with the earthy aroma of the field. It was a smell that spoke of transformation, of something beyond the ordinary. Her mind raced with possibilities, each more fantastical than the last. Could this be a message from the cosmos? A sign of life beyond their own? Or was it something more sinister, a harbinger of events yet to unfold? In the midst of her spiraling thoughts, a figure emerged from the crowd. It was Old Man Hargrove, the local recluse with a reputation for knowing things others did not. His eyes, clouded with age yet sharp with wisdom, bore into Maxine's as if he could see through her very soul. "You feel it too, don't you?" he whispered, his voice raspy yet steady. "The calling of the stars. They've been waiting for us." Maxine nodded, though an unsettling chill swept over her. The way he spoke suggested a knowing that both intrigued and terrified her. "What do you mean?" she managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly would shatter the fragile atmosphere surrounding them. "The patterns," he continued, glancing back toward the formation. "They're not just shapes, they're coordinates, a map to something greater. But it comes with a price." His gaze drifted to the horizon, where the sky began to shift, clouds gathering in an ominous dance, obscuring the sun. "We must tread carefully. The stars may have answers, but they also hold dangers we cannot fathom." Before Maxine could respond, a sudden crack of thunder rolled across the sky, shaking the very ground beneath her feet. The crowd gasped, their faces reflecting a mix of fear and fascination. Dark clouds churned, swirling as if stirred by an unseen hand, and the air thickened with tension. The hum intensified, reverberating in her bones, and she could feel the heat of anticipation rising like steam from the earth. Maxine's heart raced as she took a cautious step toward the formation, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Each step felt monumental, as if she were crossing a threshold into another realm. The wind howled, carrying with it a cacophony of whispers, echoes of lost souls perhaps, or the secrets of the universe itself. It was both exhilarating and terrifying, a dance of emotions that left her breathless. As she reached the edge of the formation, the ground beneath her feet seemed to pulse, responding to her presence as if acknowledging her connection to the cosmos. She knelt down, her fingers brushing against the intricate patterns, feeling the warmth radiating from the earth. It was as if the very soil was alive, breathing beneath her touch, a living testament to the mysteries woven into the fabric of existence. But just as she began to decipher the patterns, a flash of light erupted from the center of the formation, blinding her momentarily. The world around her shifted, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to stand still. As her vision returned, she gasped at the sight before her, an impossibly intricate design, glowing softly, pulsing with an energy that felt almost sentient. And then, as quickly as it had come, the light extinguished, plunging them back into the shadows. Gasps filled the air, and Maxine could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down upon them. The whispers faded, replaced by a deafening silence that enveloped the field like a shroud. It was as if the universe itself held its breath, waiting for them to unravel the secrets hidden within the darkness. With her heart racing and her mind swirling with questions, Maxine stood, determined to uncover the truth. She could sense that whatever lay ahead was more than just a mystery. It was a journey into the unknown, a path that would challenge her understanding of reality itself. As she turned to face the crowd, she saw the same fire of curiosity mirrored in their eyes, a shared determination to confront whatever shadows lingered just beyond the light. But as they all stood on the brink of discovery, a distant echo of laughter floated through the air, chilling and unearthly, sending shivers down Maxine's spine. It was a sound that seemed to mock them, a reminder that their journey was far from over, that the answers they sought might lead them to places they could never have imagined. In that moment, amidst the tension and uncertainty, she understood. This was not just a quest for knowledge. It was a reckoning with the cosmos, a confrontation with the very essence of existence. And as the clouds loomed overhead, Maxine felt a profound sense of purpose ignite within her, a burning need to seek out the truth, no matter the cost. The choice lay before her, and she would not turn back. The universe awaited, its secrets shrouded in shadows, and she was ready to uncover them, one haunting step at a time.